Every time we cover stories like this, it's very serious. It's no doubt very serious, and a lot of social media, a lot of news agencies don't cover stories like this, so it's definitely has to be covered. But here we go, guys. Here's the video, and we'll get to the discussion, the discourse. Here we go.
After at least 4 Bangladeshi bloggers were brutally hacked to death in recent months, a sign authorities are cracking down. On Monday night, an elite security force arrested 3 suspected Islamist hardliners. One of them, police say, was the main planner behind the deaths of 2 prominent bloggers and holds a British passport. All 3 arrested were allegedly members of the Ansar Bangla group, a newly emerged terror outfit which was banned by authorities in May. Analysts say the Ansar Bangla is linked to the Indian subcontinent branch of Al-Qaeda and is one of the most active terror groups operating in Bangladesh right now. Why is this happening? Well, according to terror observers in the region, there's a battle brewing between fundamentalists and secularists in Bangladesh, and these bloggers have been openly writing against Islamic extremism. In fact, last year, a group called Defenders of Islam printed a hit list of 84 bloggers and writers it saw as opposing Islam. Some of them have been killed. The motive is very clear: to stop secular viewpoints and send a chilling message to other bloggers exercising free thought. Many of these young writers are now saying they're worried for their safety and that they too have been receiving death threats. Samima Uras, CNN, New Delhi.
So there we have it. One thing I want to say real quick is you really can't compare secularism to religion. You know, when it comes to atrocities, you know, what atrocities do secularists commit when you come down to it? You know, in the name of secularism, it just doesn't happen. I mean, like, I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but I'm sure it happens. But it's not nearly as often as, you know, Islamic extremists out there. I'm like, they commit, what's it, 95 to 99% of the terrorist attacks in the whole entire fucking world.
I'm having a hard time thinking of the terroristic acts committed by people who are, like, you know, completely logical or skeptical of other claims. I'm having a hard time remembering all those terrorist. Like, people can do shitty things, but they sure as fuck don't do them in the name of not believing in some shit. You wanna have, you know, some kind of deity that you can scapegoat your shittiness, or even let it change you as a person. That's the real question that we always try and get to is, were they shitty and then they used their religion as an excuse, or was it the religion that made them shitty? You know, it's one of the two.
Well,
and
I think it could be both. I'm like, I think it's because of their religion. I think it's because of their indoctrination, and they adhere to the more extreme side of the religion. They actually believe in actually what it says, and they commit these atrocities on humanity. And it's sad, you know. And we need to talk about this shit. Yeah. So, Drew, go ahead. I think you want to say something.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. Yeah, first off, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you there, buddy.
Yeah, because I have to fix this shit sometimes when we do this. No, what I was going to say is I like the way Orange Skeptic said it when we had him on, I think it was about a month ago, where he said that Islam is such like a perfect catalyst for things like this. When we're talking about whether, you know, were these people like sane and it's religion that made them do it? Were they crazy and they just found something in religion? I think he hits it pretty good there.
Yeah, he definitely does. And a question I want to propose to the panel real quick is, would you still be, and this goes with the story, is would you still be an outspoken activist if you lived in a country like Bangladesh or Iran? Would you guys still be an outspoken atheist or skeptic? Would you?
No. I've often said that I wouldn't do well. Like, even if it was a botched hatchet job, just. Even if they fucked up and I survived, I don't even want to go through that. I've even admitted that if I was like loaded, I'd probably vote Republican. Yeah, you know, just because it's but I mean, you're at least that's in your best interest. You know, it is in your own best interest. And shit, I feel a hell of a lot more comfortable doing it on the other end of a camera and a microphone, honestly, than I even do in real life, because you never know what someone you've never talked with, you know, about it before, or a stranger or a customer or a new coworker or some shit like that, and then you bring that kind of shit up, you never know what you're going to get. And I don't like to ruin people. I like to think of people as like, I like this guy, and I don't try and find ways to divide people I have to come in contact with, like coworkers and shit like that. I try and find the things we have in common.
Yeah, but the thing you kind of have to keep in mind with this is that this dude, I mean, he was a blogger. He's doing very much what we're doing now, except maybe he's not on like a podcast, but he's blogging. He was, I believe, this last guy was hacked to death on like his way to a bank. Like he worked at a bank, and just like people came out of nowhere and just like hacked the shit out of him with machetes. So
I guess it could happen here. Someone could get obsessed with someone, figure out their YouTube or where they work or where they live, and get them and shoot them down or stab them or whatever it is. But it's certainly not as common.
It's not as prevalent.
Right? Yeah,
I don't think
definitely not as common.
I'm waiting for that, like TJ said, like the secularist version. I'm waiting to hear that headline of like the atheist community of Austin hacks to death Christians on their way to church or something like that.
If you go by what stupid people think, they think that Stalin and other things were done. Like what he did was in the name of secularism, which is wrong because he was just the head of a state ideology where he replaced like a deity as kind of like a god. Like the head of the state was You know how it used to be, the king or the queen were there because God chose them and God appointed them over the country, that type of shit. So he utilized the already religious ideology and other stuff that was already there, and he exploited it. So people think that, oh, well, he did it in the name of secularism. That's completely wrong. I don't know anyone who would actually do that in the name of secularism and trying to push forward secular ideals. Hell, I knew a person from Bangladesh when I was growing up, ironically named Muhammad Islam. He was actually one of the nicest people I've ever met. He was the nicest friend I ever had. He was a big guy. I was a little guy when I was growing up, and he protected me from other assholes. So
you
that's dangerous.
You can literally say Islam is peaceful and mean it.
Yeah, in that instance, yeah. It was actually funny because his parents were hardcore Islamic, but he wasn't, so he didn't give a shit about it. But his parents actually thought I was like a devil because they had just moved here from Bangladesh and they hadn't seen, and they weren't like integrated yet. And no, I hadn't gingered yet.
Real quick, let me get Hugo and Jake in here. Hugo and Jake, what do you think about this story? And also, I want to propose a question to you. Also, like I stated before, is would you still be an outspoken, activist if you lived in one of these countries, like a theocratic country or Bangladesh or Iran?
As to the first part, just the whole story in general, I almost take this as it's obviously a terrible thing, but I think the fact that these bloggers have made enough of an impression to get this reaction out of the more hardline people, that could be a positive sign in the sense that it's a growing, or potentially can be a growing movement in the area that, hey, we're not going to put up with this hardline extremism anymore. We're going to try and get together, because the article that we read about it basically said that, it wasn't just because they were individual bloggers. They had gotten together, and they were all trying to work together to try and talk about this, which they felt threatened by and did what they did. So I think that could be a good sign that people now in areas like that are starting to decide this is bullshit, we're not going to put up with it. Unfortunately, because they were very open about it, there was retribution, which sucks. Hopefully in the future, other people can go about it and maybe be a little more anonymous and can continue that mission, basically. As far as me, if I were in that situation, the idealist in me would like to say I would do it openly and I'd be brave. That's bullshit, though. I would never do that.
See, we're on the same page.
I'd like to think I could do it like anonymously, though. Somehow, I'd still like to spread a message of like, "Hey, extremism is bad," which is the
you can
biggest
pull
understatement.
You could pull an armored skeptic.
Yeah.
Well, I think honestly, if you're going to do that in an area that you face violent action against you and people you love based upon the things you say, it's almost more beneficial to leave that place entirely. And I know sometimes that's not reasonable.
Yeah.
I get it, but if that's what your goal is, if your goal is like, hey, secularism or atheism or just non-religion or anti-extremism needs to be attacked, we'll do it from a safe place so that your message doesn't die with you.
Because, I get what you're saying.
Because we don't martyr people the way they martyr people. So
I know.
This is going to happen, and then
I think you can be more
talk about it.
I think you can be more effective from within, though.
Well,
even if you're anonymous and you're not going out on the street talking about it, even just saying, "Hey, I'm still in this area. I might be anonymous, but I know what the day-to-day is like, and here's why I think things need to change." I think that's more beneficial than saying, "I used to be from there, now I'm wherever in the UK or something, and now I'm talking about it." I think still being in the midst of it and talking about your day-to-day experiences. that can have more power.
I think it has more power, but I think it can get cut
yeah,
short before it takes hold.
it's a risk. It's a risk assessment you have to make,
more
and
like
I
a Hail
understand it's
Mary,
hard, but
pretty much.
It is. I think if you're going to do this in those types of countries, I think being anonymous, somebody like an armor skeptic, I think you would have more effect, because you won't be worried about your own. Yeah, of course, use a voicecoder to code your voice if you want to make a statement. In those countries, yeah, I can see that. I can agree with you guys on
Do you
that one,
guys
but-
do you guys know who Grappling Ignorance is?
Oh,
Yeah.
I know
All
the
right.
name.
Yeah, I know
Okay, well, he's a YouTuber, and he used to just show his face on camera, and he's a teacher, and he got in trouble
Yep.
with the school he was working at because of his YouTube videos that were just, based on science and, logic, skepticism, shit like that, and got in trouble. And I believe he's at a different school now, and now he had to make a different channel or whatever, and he totally obscures, and he wears like a hoodie and then totally like 8 bits the screen so bad that you can't see anything, just to avoid, and that's the kind of I guess persecution that we endure over here, more than certainly getting hacked the fucking down.
I don't mean to cut off.
Right.
I think it's Jake. You were going to say something. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, you're
I think
good.
you were- I
I was
think you were
pretty
gonna
much
say
just
something.
going to expound on what he was saying. But as for what TJ was saying, I think it's probably in your best interest if you are in that sort of field, because I am going to school and finishing up to be a teacher. And we don't use our faces. Obviously, we show our faces on here and stuff, and it'll come up eventually. And I don't actually, at this point, I would make less money.
Doing a teaching thing.
We just kind of breached that just barely. But I would still like to do it in the future. I think, I don't know, just being honest about it is probably your best course of action if you're also a personality on some sort of anything that goes against the grain. Even if you were in say on the East Coast and you were a hardcore Republican blogger, I think you'd still have some issues.
Sure.
Obviously not as much as being an atheist.
Yeah.
But or transgendered or something like that. Just something that it goes against the social, what's acceptable as like a norm. I think it's probably anonymous is the best way to go if you plan on doing anything.
I can totally see, though, the idea that, like, letting people know, like, hey, I'm an atheist, and you liked me all the way before, and now you can say that you know some atheists that you like and get along with, and it helps. I understand that there's like a fine line between exposing yourself too much and making sure that you don't want it to be like some secret society where everyone still thinks we're the least trusted group in America.
One of the least now.
Well, whatever. It's ridiculously
second from the
low.
bottom.
The percentage.
It's
of people that-
surprisingly low, but I think it's because people are pretty quiet about it, and when they're loud about it, they're the assholes that we don't want to associate with.
Sometimes.
So most people's interaction is either someone who doesn't talk about it because it's not that big of a deal to them. It's like, yeah, I don't believe it, but I'm not going to bring it up. Or it's someone that it's a huge deal to them, and they bring it up all the time. And
But they're bad at it.
They're really bad at it. And so I think we're kind of in that weird spot where we're not normal enough that people can just like know that like I'm an atheist and it's cool, Jake's cool, but also like Jack is still an asshole that you work with, and he brings it up every day you come in because you go to church on Sundays.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So it's just I think we're as a community we're not very tactful with that. And we think, and especially because a lot of us are ex-believers, and a lot of us come out and are real aggressive.
Because now I'm good at talking about being, relatively speaking, I'm pretty good at talking about my non-belief and why I don't believe the things that I used to believe. But I know when I came out of being a Christian, I was kind of an asshole about it. And I think a lot of young atheists are at that stage where their arguments aren't there yet. So when they do try and talk about it, like, fervently, they come off as ignorant, even though they might have completely legitimate reasons for not having belief. I think obviously that's the correct position, but I think they come off as not as good sometimes just because they don't have the ability to articulate the arguments they're trying to make.
It takes time to formulate those arguments. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. One thing I do want to say is, when we talk about topics like this, we're not trying to demean or try to say like all Islam or all Muslims are this way. I'm like, we have to know the extremism. We have to know that, yes, when it comes to the motherload of bad ideas, per Sam Harris, Yeah, they are the motherload of bad ideas, and we can see by the atrocities that they commit. Now, on the other side of the spectrum, when you see people like, Cenk Uygur from the Young Turks, he's a Muslim apologist. He'll cover stories like Dylan Roof and he'll compare it to like Islamic attack, but don't forget the right wingers out there. Every time you'll never see him cover a story on an attack that has to do with Muslims or Islamic extremists. You won't see him just do a story on that. If he does do a story on that, it's about how about those right wingers out there. And it's just a recent video he just did. There was almost a bombing at an abortion clinic. Oh geez, but Christians. It's just like I hate that shit. And that's not progressive. That's not being a progressive. That's just being a fucking idiot.
How do you categorize that? Like, it's right wing hate groups, and then there's Islamic.
Did you just say white wing?
Well, I'm pretty sure that they're pretty right wing themselves. They're not really that fucking left wing now, are they? I don't think ISIS is a giant left wing organization over there in the Middle East, is it?
Let me just say Christian terrorism. Okay, let me rephrase that a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean, but it's like the way they're trying to phrase it, like, you should be more afraid of right-wing terrorism here. Why don't you just say the right thing? Why don't you say Christian terrorism is trying to say this right-wing? It's just more of them trying to demonize anyone who's on the right side of
they did
the political spectrum.
Their recent video, the image was Christian terrorists, so it is what it is.
Yeah, no, I'm just what I'm just trying to say is that they're trying to pull up this shit. That's what they tried to do. That's what he does. Is he tries to put it as if there's it's a right wing terror or it's Islamic terror. It's like, well, no, there's a lot of other shit.
Yeah, and it's not just it's not like exclusively him. There's just kind of that idea that comes from the left and stuff like that of tiptoeing around the problems within Islam.
Yeah. That being said, I got an image here I want to show you guys on the atrocities, the terrorist acts that have been committed by Islamic terrorists. So here we go, guys. Deadly terror attacks since 9/11. I don't know why you want to include 9/11, but hey, listen, we don't need that.
Numbers, that's why.
But we don't need that. We don't need that statistic included. But Islamic terrorists have carried out more than 26,000 plus deadly terror attacks since 9/11. And then just this week, guys, August 15th to August 21st, Islamic terrorist jihad attacks 49, Allah Akbars, which are suicide attacks 6, dead bodies 356, critically injured, blah, blah, blah. You guys can read the stats for yourself. It's sad. It's sad that the world has to deal with this shit, and we have to speak against this. A lot of people don't. And that's the sad part about it. Mainstream media. You won't see them bring it up. They'll attack atheists.
Oh, that mainstream media, Joe. You don't let them fool you.
Don't let them fool you.
We got a regular Joe six-pack here, fellas. You betcha.
All right, TJ.
You can't see me, but I'm winking. Trust me.
All right, TJ Palin.
Just FYI, before we go on, my power keeps kind of flickering in and out. So if I lose connection, you know what's up.
It's okay.
It went out again and came right back on.
It's God. He doesn't like Texans.
Way too much. Energy.
I know. I got it on charge, and it's so big. It takes so much power to.
I should say God doesn't like atheist Texans. So yeah. That being said, guys, how about we get on?
No one likes Texans. What are you talking about?
How about we get on to our next topic? Anything else you guys want to say on this topic? Oh, one thing I do want to say is we gotta praise in whatever form you want to, any context you want to take that word, but praise. We gotta praise these types of bloggers that live in these countries that speak out against such hatred, speak out against the atrocities.
Yeah,
that Islam
the least we could all do is at least go read a couple of his articles.
We got to give these guys props when it's needed, and we have to respect these types of people.
Even just out of interest to see what it was that got people so riled the fuck up.
Yeah.
Oh, well, come on. You know what it's going to be. It's going to be some type of insult to the prophet or some type of insult to some stupid fucking holy book or hadith or whatever.